Russian MiG 31K models. They're a Foxbat. They carry the Iskander variant of a missile called a Kinzhal. It's hypersonic. There is absolutely no defense against it, especially if it's close to the target and they fire it. It's able to maneuver. But here's the thing. I've been thinking about this. This is a possibility. I'm not saying it's from God, but I did see this from God. I had a dream, 2 dreams, and in one of the dreams I saw Russia attacking NATO forces, and they killed about 3,100 or 3,200 is what I saw on this thing. And a bunch of them were British soldiers in this dream. I dreamed that I was watching YouTube, and I was just surfing, and then it came on the screen like a red warning thing came on, and then it said Russia just attacked and killed all these NATO forces, and a bunch of them were British. And they gave the city area, which I can't remember the name. It seems like Murmansk or some weird something like that. It gave the name. I was shocked when I saw it in the video on there. And so another time I had another dream where Russia attacked Ukraine. So this is what I think the scenario is. We know that the United States of America is not mentioned as a powerful nation in Bible prophecy at the end, except that maybe United States is the nation of Babylon, because the Bible tells us that it's surrounded by sea, which there's sea on both coastlines and on Alaska. So basically it's all around us, and we've got even the sea down by Mexico and stuff. So it's really around the United States. And we have enriched the entire world by buying products and using technology and all these things. And then our church system has went everywhere with the Catholics. And then we have the problem with pornography. And we push killing babies all over the world. They fund other nations in birth control and in abortions. We are the largest exporter of pornography, I think, in the entire world. And we were a Christian nation at one time. And I know people want to debate that. Yeah, we weren't, but we were. And during the 50s, 40s, 50s, 30s, 60s, until the Beatles got here and Elvis and rock and roll and all that stuff, people were in church. You didn't have to lock your doors. But, you know, it all went downhill. So Ukraine. And this is what I theorize happened. The Bible tells us in the book of Daniel there's going to be these 10 nations. And he says, Daniel tells us that this angel told him this. So we know it's from God. And what he said was that he was going to show him what would be the end of sin. It would be the end of prophecy, and all this other stuff would be over. It would be done with, right? And previous to that, he was talking about the world, and there's going to be these 10 nation states put together. Revelations talked about it. There's a few scriptures that in Daniel and Revelation that talk about 10 nation states. And what I believe happens is the United States is a huge world power, but we are ruled by the Antichrist spirit, and there are people in charge that are working for him. They know who he is. They think they're going to bring about a new world order. We've heard it through the Bushes for years. And there's the gravestones that talk about the destruction of 6 million or 6 billion people. So we know something's going to happen. And this is the way I put it together in my mind, and I think it's very plausible that Biden has been doing all these things to try to bring this together. He failed with the Afghanistan retreat. He failed now with this deal with the Iranians. They have enough weapons-grade uranium to make a bomb. It's very close. They probably have more than that. And they say, well, it could take them a year on ABC News, the Obama Broadcasting Corporation. They say it could take a year, but we know that they have discovered the use of initiators, which are used to initiate a nuclear explosion. It's a trigger device that emits neutrons to cause the neutron cascade. Dog! My daughter's dog's over here. Sharp, get up here. It's like part coyote, half coyote. So anyway, we know that those neutron initiator triggers have been used. They have absolute proof of that. And so at least 3 times, and there's bomb fragment casings, and there's been evidence of nuclear material being tested. So we know the Iranians have already done the groundwork for that. Bombs, you can look up the plans for them. All they got to do is use the specs, and they'll have a workable bomb. I don't think it'll take them a year. I think it'll take them minutes. They probably already had the bomb casing. It's like on Back to the Future. I gave them a shoddy bomb casing filled with pinball parts. Well, they're not that stupid anymore. They probably have a workable bomb right now. One that they can put on the end of that missile, because it carries almost 1,000 pounds warhead. So you can put a pretty good size nuclear device that's just a implosion device where you use a gun or whatever, like our very first one. The hard part is triggering it at the right time. You want it to detonate at 1,100 feet or 2,200 feet above the ground so you get the maximum blast. And what I saw was a missile coming from Iran, goes into Israel and detonates near Tel Aviv and Haifa area. So I'm doing this live so I can get this out here. And so what happens is, what I see is Biden's going to try to stop them once they start this Ukrainian war. And he doesn't have the guts to really do it. And he's been doing all kinds of things. We sent grenade launchers over there. They fire 340 something grenades per minute. It's the MK-19. We sent, there's Stinger missiles going over there. We sent these tank killing missiles. And we also sent bunker busting single man rocket launchers over there, so you can carry man carried rocket launcher that can knock out bunkers, and there's like 800 of those. And then you have these other missiles that knock out tanks, and they're guaranteed to knock them out. They never fail. If you're within 2 miles of that tank and you fire that, it's a kill. It works every time. And Stinger missiles, same thing, within 2 miles. And then there's air defense systems that are over there. So what I think happens is this thing's going to escalate, and it's going to end up with being some kind of limited tactical nuclear war against the United States. China is already involved. The Lord showed me Russia and China team up, and I made a video about that. Russia and China to attack the United States. The Lord showed me that. So they're going to team up. They're going to take us out, limited. They don't want to destroy the country because they want the resources and stuff here. So we're going to have an EMP. Our power is going to go out, and then they're going to hit certain cities. And once they do that, you're going to have a massive cleanup, and we're going to be really busy. And Biden's going to resign. That's what I think happens. Biden resigns after this happens in disgrace because he's a total failure. They said he can't even go through one of these meetings without having to stop and take a nap or something because he's just so weak and he can't make it. And what do you expect? And I believe that this thing happens where he resigns and Kamala goes to power. And I believe it was Branham that had a dream in 1930 something that there would be these egg-shaped self-propelled cars that you can, and they had video screens and stuff, and there weren't even really TVs back then. TVs were these huge boxes when he had this dream. And he saw them playing things in these cars as they drove by themselves remotely, and they had glass on the roof where you could see down in them. And what do you have now? When you look at a Tesla, the roof is glass. It's self-driving. That's what he said he saw. So, and they look kind of like an egg shape. Most of these cars, especially a Prius and several other ones, you know, and who knows what he was seeing exactly. But this is what I think. There's going to be this limited tactical nuclear attack. We're going to have an EMP. Power's going to go down. They're going to strike the United States. And then we're going to have a war against Russia. It's going to take them down a notch. Iran will probably be severely damaged. And then, you know, they may all join in. I saw Korea joining in, and I saw Iran in the middle of it too. So there's going to be something that goes on. We know that they have enough uranium to build a bomb or two. They probably have 10 bombs already built, and they probably already have them sitting on top of rockets. Because I saw 1 or 2 go in there, and they detonated near Haifa. I mean, near between Haifa and Tel Aviv. I saw a big gold star on Tel Aviv, and so that's where I think they hit. So Biden will resign, I believe. because he's a disgrace, and the whole world's after him because he's not a good president. He wasn't even a good in Congress. He never did anything of any value to the country. So he resigns. Kamala takes over, and then that's the woman that Brandon saw. He saw a mean-faced woman, and I don't know if you've ever seen her when she's being mean. So maybe she's in there, and that's what this Jewish kid saw when he was 15 years old. He knows nothing about the scripture, Bible prophecy, and he died on one of the Jewish holidays. I don't know if it was first fruits or if it was Passover or which one it was, but this was a few years ago. I made a video about that too. If you check my channel, you can find it. But the kid died, and he went to heaven, and he saw God. He saw these three lights, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And then the rabbis corrupted him by saying, well, maybe it was this rabbi and that rabbi is what you saw as the lights. And they were they totally tried to take control of it. But he's, in his thing, what he said was that these lights were telling him that he wasn't living a good life. And a lot of people say, well, you can't say this, you can't say that. They want to argue because he wasn't a Christian, but he's 15 years old, and he'd never been to any school. His parents are secular people. We don't know what God does when he judges us. We are the ones that judge everybody else, God's servants. We judge his servants, and that's against the law. Jesus Christ, Yeshua said, don't judge another man's servant. So here's what I think. He resigns. She gets in there, and they're trying to fix the world. And I believe somehow Obama surfaces, and he becomes the leader of whatever's left some way, possibly. He's from the tribe of Dan. His daddy was in the Syrian area, which was all, I believe that's where he was. But the area that he comes from, where his dad was born, he's a black guy. That guy was part of the Roman Empire. The Romans had influence over this area. And so I believe that his mother is of the tribe of Dan. We know the Bible absolutely says that the Antichrist is from the tribe of Dan. And Macron, people try to say Macron is in there, but he's not. He just failed at trying to put the Russians and them back together. He thought he'd take his spot in history, and he failed. Utterly failed. And so I don't believe Macron has any Jewish blood. And we know the Antichrist will have Jewish blood because they will believe he is the Messiah at some point, whoever the Antichrist is. There's the beast and there's the Antichrist, and on and on and on it goes. And it's kind of confusing, but I really think, if you go watch Perry Stone, he does some pretty good teachings on the Antichrist and what he does and all this stuff. But I'm not saying this is from God, but I'm just saying in my thinking, the Bible tells us that God can reveal things to you. And what I see is this happening. We're going to be attacked. Biden's going to resign. Kamala takes over. She does the thing that William Branham said. And this man was a true man of God. And he said it's a woman at the end that's running everything. And the cars look like egg-shaped, and they're self-powered, and they have video type things in them when they didn't have any video, but he said they had like a TV screen in there, and the kids were doing something on some pads or something, which is what is happening now. And that wasn't even seen until like Star Trek. When you had Star Trek, they walked around with these little pads, especially the new Next Generation Star Trek, with Geordi LaForge and Captain Jean-Luc Picard. One with Captain Kirk and them, they didn't really have that. They had like pads and they would write on them and stuff. And then they had little computer chips that they put in. They were square things like a floppy disk. Used to be the floppy A disk. That kind of thing that had memory on it. So this is what I'm seeing, brother and sister. And I just want to let you have a heads up because it's getting even worse every morning. When ABC News, who works for them, really for the Democratic Party, and they get on the news and they say, look, inflation is the worst it's been in 40 years. I can remember 40 years ago, I bought a home My house, the interest rate on the house was 10.75%. And it dropped down from like 16 or something weird like that. It was really high. The interest rate to buy a car was 20%. I had a Jeep that I bought, a Jeep Wrangler, for my wife, and we were paying huge payments. It was only $12,000, and I was paying $300 a month, and I gave him my car and my motorcycle as down payment. So, and then after Ronald Reagan became president and did away with that nonsense that Jimmy Carter was doing, see, he's the one that set up the Oslo Accords, all this garbage that's going on right now that tries to give away the land of Israel to her enemies. It was always some U.S. president interfering in God's will, you see. And when you do that enough times, pretty soon God has this cup, and he goes, oh, here's a little bit more, here's a little bit more. And pretty soon, you know, you can see, when you fill a cup, you can see on that cup the water sitting up above the top of the rim of the glass, and then it overflows and comes out of there. That's what's happening to this nation. We are about to reap what has been sowed by the Democratic Party and their New World Order and all their garbage about criminals really are misunderstood. And we got to understand them. There was like 700 and almost 80 murders in the city where Obama comes from, where he was a big wheel there. You know, this year alone, it's just amazing how many people are being killed, cop after cop. There's shootings almost every day because, see, they want to get rid of the handguns and rifles. They want to take them from everybody because, you know, then you can wait for the cops to come and save you if somebody's beating down your door with an axe or with a bar or something. You know, how do you protect yourself? I know a lady that was in Australia, and she was a physical therapist, and she spent her time there, and she said that was the most unsafe, scary place she ever lived. She said guns, you couldn't, if you had a gun, you had to have a license for it, and you had to have the main part of the gun in one safe, the action in a second safe, and then so they had to be taken apart, and then you had to have your ammunition in a third safe. And people there, she said the biggest thing that was selling there was barbed wire and security cameras. And they would have these gangs come in, they'd have machetes and baseball bats, and there'd be 10 or 15 of them, and they'd do the flash mob thing. And they'd just bust down your gates and come in there, and before you could unlock your safe and get your gun loaded, they'd be beating your wife in the head with a shovel or something. She said, I was terrified while I was there. And that's what the Democrats wants to bring to the United States of America. Because just like Rothschild, one of those, or Rockefeller one, their ranch gets invaded, and he's for no guns, but yet he's got armed security guards there at his ranch. Because, see, he wants, you got to have your private security. Not all of us can afford a private security. And when you have 10 or 15 people, or even 3 people attack you, I don't know if you've ever been attacked by 3 men. It's pretty hard to defend yourself. You know, and then you've got your family. You don't want something terrible to happen to your family. It's horrible, you know. When Jesus sent the disciples out just before he died, he said, I told you not to take an extra coat or anything. Don't take anything with you, or don't take a weapon or a staff or anything. He says, now get a weapon. Bring all your stuff, man. I'm sending you out. There's monsters out there. You got to have some protection. So anyway, we need to pray because things are getting hyped up, you know, and the Lord told me that all the things that he had told me and Pastor Patrick that were words from him, because sometimes, you know, even the best of us think we're hearing from God and we aren't. You know, that happens to people because sometimes the devil can speak little lies into your head, but so we have to use discernment. And we have to look to the Holy Spirit. And we have to look at God's Word. What does it say? Does it agree with what we're seeing here? What's manifesting? Do we have proof of what's going on? Come on in here, old hand of dog. So, my house is a mess. I'm in the middle of building a wall for months now. My wife destroys everything. First it was the bathroom. Then she smashed the cupboard over there. We're going to fix this. Look. She watches too many home remodeling shows. Anyway, we need to pray, brothers and sisters. We need to pray that the Lord would bring in those last lost sheep, of the house of Israel and of the United States and throughout the world, that he'd bring them in so that his son could return and put an end to this nonsense that the Democrats they're pushing this on the whole planet. They have an agenda. It's unified. If you look in Europe, it's the same thing that's going on. It's going on everywhere. And these people are pushing it because they're insane. I watched the lady on the news, a black lady, her son was in the Afghanistan war. He came back. 3 people jumped on him, a man, 2 men, and a woman. They were brothers, and she was married to one of them. They jumped on this man who was a war hero. He had medals. They jumped on him and stabbed him brutally to death, took his wallet. And then her bail was $750,000, and they reduced it down to $12,000. And the brothers are in there, but they'd been in trouble. Each one of them had over 100 counts of different crimes against them. So between the 2 of them was over 200 crimes the 2 men had committed together or separately. It's horrific. They do nothing. They just let these people out over and over again. And every time they do, they go out and murder somebody. They kill somebody. And then finally they catch them after they've killed another innocent human being. And the people, the judges, and the systems that allow them to get out of prison early or out on bond or bail, those systems, this is a violent person. This is a person that has shown the propensity to harm other human beings while committing a crime. Those kind of people don't need to be out of jail. If they don't want to put them in the regular system, they need to have a separate jail for incoming people like that they can watch and protect them until they get through the system if they can't afford to bail out. Most of the time they have videotape of them, or they have eyewitnesses of what they're doing, and they still let them out because you're innocent until proven guilty, even though there's an eyewitness that I saw that happen. Here's a videotape of you doing what they said you did. Like that kid that went in there and shot those people in that pancake house, a Waffle House. Shot and killed them. Shows him shooting the people out front, and then he goes inside and shoots people. And then what happened? He said, I was crazy at the moment. I thought aliens or God was telling me to do something. Yeah, we all say that when we get caught. But he'd figured out how to steal this lady's car and escape, and he was going to live a good life. He left a note and everything. All that stuff he's telling is a lie. You know, when I was in law enforcement, we'd catch people, and they'd ask them if they did so-and-so, and they'd say, look you right in the eye and tell you no. And then you'd have a videotape of them going into a store buying flammable liquids and lighters and stuff. And like this one girl, they were homosexual, so they had attacked this other girl and written on the car dirty cuss words and stuff with a permanent marker. And they used a certain flammable liquid, and we found a videotape from a store that showed them buying these markers and buying the flammable liquid and all the other stuff. And then we found in a dumpster a few blocks from there or whatever, the stuff that they used, the very stuff with their fingerprints on it, but they're saying, oh, I didn't do it. Oh, it wasn't me. Why would I do that? People burn their own property down to try to collect the insurance money because they wanted to do a remodel or whatever, set the business on fire somehow. Well, I didn't know that would happen. Baby dog. Pray for my little dog. She has congestive heart failure. She has to take pharmaceutical. She has to take it because it releases, there's a sac around your heart and there's fluid building up in there and it could kill her, right? And so I prayed for her. So you guys pray for her, and it costs $50-$60 a month just for the one medicine to give her because this fluid keeps building up around her heart. And if I don't give it to her, she dies. But it's pharmaceutical, brother. It's that magic stuff. And people look at that and they don't even realize, they don't go and look up the word pharmaceutical and see where it's used and how that they're talking about using it in a magic ceremony to get into an altered state of mind to go and see some other god. That's what was going on. It wasn't, oh, somebody used an aspirin, or, oh, I had a broken leg in a car accident and I went down and they fixed my leg. The doctors had to mend my leg and put it in a cast. Well, you can't do that, brother. Trust in the Lord for that broken leg. Well, if I'm out in the middle of the desert and I can't get to a doctor, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to pray that my leg will be healed by the Lord, because he's really the one that does the healing. And there are miracles where God can instantaneously heal my leg, like Perry Stone's dad prayed for that guy that got hit by that mail arm on that train. There was a metal mail arm sticking out to pick up the mail as it goes by. It hit this guy and split him in two. And he prayed for him and pushed that skin together, and God healed that man. A miracle happened. But not always do miracles happen. So people go to the hospital all the time. They're having a child, and then they have to have a C-section. Oh, and then they've got to have a nerve block in their back. Pharmakeia. Got to use some of the pharmakeia on my back because, and then let brother so-and-so and sister so-and-so accuse me of using pharmakeia because I had to have a spinal block because they were cutting my stomach open. And then they were stitching me up. Those people that say that kind of stuff need something like that to happen to them so they can see just what faith is and let them lean on it. God, it all infuriates me because Christians do not love one another. How can you say you love God who you haven't seen when you can't even love your own brothers and sisters? When you can't even follow the words of Jesus Christ where he says, how dare you judge another man's servant? Whenever they came and they were talking to him about things other people were doing. What are you doing? He said. How about when they were going to call down fire on these guys and burn them up like Elijah did? And he said, no. Jesus came to save, to seek out, to find, and to save them. We don't know who they are. And the thing is, you spread the word. Some of it falls on good ground. Some falls on stony. Some falls within the briars and the thistles. It's the Lord that causes the harvest to come. Jesus Christ did all these healings. Why? People don't even understand that and know why he does the healings. He did it as a sign. John the Baptist was about to get beheaded. He was Jesus' cousin. He's been around him his whole life. He says, are you the one? Because they saw the Spirit of God descend on him when he baptized him. The Holy Spirit came down as a dove on him, and all this stuff happened, and they heard a voice. But yet they still doubted. And what happened? What did Jesus tell them whenever his disciples came and said, are you the one? Jesus Christ. When some people are saying you can't say Jesus, do you know the name? There was no J in the Bible until around 1600. It was I, because there's no Greek letter for that. So it was written in Greek, and there's no J. And there was no J in the English language until then. And they added that, and they added the S at the end of it. His name is Yeshua. I agree with that. Some people are trying to say that's the name of the Antichrist some way because 666 is Agusus. That's how you pronounce it. Which sounds similar to Jesus. But I don't believe that junk that guy's saying. But it is true. I researched it. Somebody sent me a video, so I'll look all that up and find out, oh, it's true. That the name was changed. In the King James, it said this when they had before King James did his deal with it. You can research all that and see in his authorized version. There was no J's until they invented the J. So that's why they call him John, not John. See? You can research it all. Just look it up. It's all history. You can look it up, the history of it. This is how it became, the way it became. So anyway, let's get back to the point here. We need to love one another. That's what Jesus Christ said. We need to have compassion and empathy on our brothers and sisters and on those in the wild. Just like the person that got wounded, right? And he said, who's my brother? Well, who's my neighbor? Well, there's this